Hey, Jeff Justice here with Jeff Justice Seminars for Court Reporters. I want to thank you so much for deciding to choose us to get your online CEUs with. We promise not to disappoint you. We provide laugh-packed, content-rich seminars so that you can get your CEUs from the comfort of your own home or office. So basically, you're going to watch the videos as you do, print out the PDFs for the quizzes, answer the questions as you go along. At the end of the whole seminar, so if you're taking a 10-hour seminar after you finish all the sections, email me all of your answers. I will grade them and get you back your letter of completion for your state, and if you're an RPR, the proper forms for NCRA. So get ready to laugh and learn with Jeff Justice Seminars for Court Reporters.
Thank you. We're going to talk about punctuation, word pairs, and hyphens and quotes. And yes, a little other stuff sprinkled in. All right, we are on page 7. And we start with punctuation. You'll see the big period there as the first piece of punctuation. In this section, we will review basic punctuation, starting with a period at the end of a sentence. Do you put 1 or 2 spaces at the end of a sentence? And the answer is, who wants to answer that question? Do we use 1 or 2 spaces at the end of a sentence? 2. All right, raise your hand if you say 2. All right, raise your hand if you say 1. All right, 100% of the people here said 2 spaces at the end of a sentence. We were taught that in school. We have been doing that all our lives. It's almost like, well, Anita, of course it's 2. What are you talking about? How about the court reporter who has an 11-year-old, and the 11-year-old is doing homework and does essays or whatever and types something and puts 1 space after the period and starts the next sentence. Mom, the court reporter, comes along and says, no, you need 2 spaces at the end of the period. And the little child says, Mommy, it's 1 space. And the mother says, it's 2 spaces. Like, I know I'm a court reporter and I have known English for 37 years and blah, blah, blah. And they get into a little war. Mom, court reporter, we got new rules. Technically, the correct answer is, it depends on the font. Are you ready for that one? Many people are using 1 period at the end of a sentence. We use proportional fonts. With proportional fonts, it's 1 space at the end of a sentence. What is a proportional font? A font like Dana, Arial, Calibri, those different fonts with an M. You know, an M has 2 loops and it's kind of a wide letter. A W is a wide letter. An L, a small L, is just a straight line. Looks almost like a 1 or an I. So an L, being a very skinny line, there's more white space to the left and right of the L. That is what we talk about as a proportional font. There's more space given to the M, there's more space given to the W, there's less space given to the I and the L. In traditional font, or what I would call old-fashioned font, or a lot of us use Courier. We've been using Courier font in our transcripts throughout the years. That is traditional font. That means that the M takes up so much space. The letter I, or the L, also takes up that exact amount of space. There's just more white on the left and right of the L and I. It's not proportional. So with Courier, you use 2 spaces at the end of a period. Some people say it's easier to read. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. Tell that to the people who make up these rules. Anyway, This is the technical information. If you continue to use 2 spaces, good for you, you're fine. You've never had your hand slapped. That's what our cat companies are doing, pretty much. Even with proportional fonts, they usually will do it 2 spaces after a period. And you just get to know that either one can technically be correct. And it's a lot of minutia, but it's something fabulous to talk about when you discuss a period at the end of a sentence. Yes.
Isn't our
Tina!
Yeah,
She
that's
kept
right.
her name.
Isn't our software set though that when you do a period, it automatically spaces too?
All
So
right.
at this point,
Is our software set when you do a period, it automatically gives you 2 spaces? Yes, and this is another conversation. So I don't know what software you're on, but I've had a few discussions with some of the software companies. Are they planning to change it? I don't know. But I'll tell you, it was so cute, because a few years ago I saw this conversation on the internet, on LinkedIn, and court reporters were chiming in, and I always use 2 spaces, or I use 1 because that's the new way. Well, my kid told me I have to this or that. Back and forth, and one court reporter wrote, I think if you use 1 space, it's blasphemous.
wow.
So I rest my case. I got such a kick out of that little comment. All right. So that is basically the official rule. When you use proportional fonts, such as Arial used here, you will notice the letters I and L take up very little room. When you use traditional or monospaced fonts, such as Courier, used here, as our CAT software often uses, you can use 2 spaces. Okay. Use a period at the end of a sentence. Use a period if there is a run-on sentence. Well, we know that. Okay. When an attorney repeats an answer, use a period, not a question mark. So if the question was, you lived there, did you live there 12 years? Answer, yes. You lived there, so now the questioning attorney says, you lived there 12 years, you don't put a question mark, you put a period. Even if he says, did you live there 12 years? Answer, yes. Now the new question. You lived there 12 years. If it's vague, you put a period, not a question mark. Use a period at the end of the beginning of all right, fine, okay, very well. Not a comma, not a semicolon, etc. Use a period after an indirect question. He is wondering if you want to go. That does not take a question mark. That takes a period because he is wondering is the root of the sentence. He is wondering this, period. So that would take a period. She is asking if you knew what was in the box, and that's a period. Again, not a question mark. Okay. Do not use periods in some of these acronyms or abbreviations. Now again, folks, this is technical. This is, in my opinion, minutia. And if you do use a period, okay, there are some captioning companies who say they want you to use a period in every 3-letter acronym or abbreviation. All of them. Blanket across the board. And there are some captioning companies who say, no, you don't have to use a period. But remember, captions are all caps. So how readable is what you're writing? If you are writing a word, so let's say it's a WAND, the WAND organization. If you're writing a word that is an abbreviation or a abbreviation or acronym, thank you. An acronym, if it spells a regular word, you would always put in the periods. And what does your captioning agency tell you to do?
Yes, when it's a word like SWAT, we would do it.
Like the SWAT team.
SWAT. And if it's the SWAT team, we have periods.
S period, W period, A period, T, as opposed to do not swat the fly. Yes, and does your captioning?
We do the same. I don't, actually with SWAT, I don't usually, if it says SWAT team.
Okay.
Like, SAT, ACT, I did a big thing for college prep and, SAT, looks like SAT.
All right, so if you're taking the SAT exam, SAT, in a college environment, college entrance exam, SAT, you would put the periods in, and there was another one you said.
On SWAT, if I'm saying.
Oh,
SWAT.
ACT.
Oh, yeah, ACT.
So the
ACT.
ACT, you would do A period, C period, T period.
Right.
But for the word SWAT, now you don't put the periods in, and you do put the periods in. Perfect. Perfect, because life goes on and everybody's happy. It's not about like God and oh my God, did you see what she did last week? So it's really not about that. The one thing I will say about this is you will absolutely honor whoever you work for. When they tell you they want a style, that's it. You are going to say, sure, no problem. You're not going to say, well, why do you have to do it like that? My other agency had it in another place. No, we don't do that. The agency will also tell you where to put the captions, on the top, on the bottom, on the lower right corner, and the upper left corner. The agency tells you where to put the captions, and you again say, great, wonderful, be glad to do that. That's it. All right, be easy to work with, folks. Wherever you work, be easy to work with. Okay, so this gives you a few examples. Government agency abbreviations, radio or TV stations. Most abbreviations do not have periods. They are simply caps. Just be mindful that if you are captioning or you are outputting in all caps, be mindful of the look of it. And there is nothing wrong with putting periods in if you feel it's clarifying or it makes it more readable. However, technically, these are the ways you would write some of these. SOS. Now, there's one more thing I'm going to mention here, because we have two captioners in the room who I'm sure do this. But if you are outputting in all caps, do you have a way to write small letter? For example, a small s. Well, no, I do all caps. Oh, really? How about, how many DVDs did you order? Capital D, capital V, capital D, small s. So you want to have a distinctive stroke in order to output a small s as a plural. Is that right or wrong?
Not at my company. I can write it that way so that a printed transcript would show that, but when it goes out on air, it's all caps no matter what.
Okay.
We do apostrophe S on some of those, even though it's not a possessive.
Okay, so they do apostrophe S with her captioning agency, and if it goes to print, she would do a small s. Great, excellent. How about you?
We do the small s.
You do a small s. I love to hear from different people, because now we know there are two different captioning agencies, and they have two different formats. So it's great to hear it all. Thank you both. Okay. But I'm just letting you know that if you ever do get into this, and you're outputting in all caps, these are little things that some people never thought about. And that is to create letters that can be written small when they need to be written small. Okay, so we've also got SOS, FCC, CIA, etc. Radio stations and TV stations, all caps. Now let's look at DBA. Some people write DBA with small letters and a slash mark in between. Oh, God bless you. My research has shown that DBA, while it can be correct written different ways, you can absolutely write it in all caps with nothing in between and it is correct. So sometimes people use italics with DBA. And I'm just not going to get into all of that. But I'm letting you know that it is technically correct to do DBA as all caps, okay? And then use periods for the following. We have some abbreviations, IE, that is, okay? And EG, for example. Et al. Gets a period, et sec, etc. When you spell it out, it does not get a period. ETC period gets a period. And in your transcripts, when they say etc., you should spell it out. Technically, that's the correct way to do a transcript, the full word. By the way, pardon me?
It's one word.
It's one word? Okay, all right. Then yeah, I'm going to make a note on that. Thank you very much.
That's outdated.
Say that again, what?
No, 2 words is outdated. I think they haven't used that since like 1910 or something.
Okay, all right. I think check it out. Listen, if I 100% disagree with Reggie, I am not going to disagree with Reggie. When Reggie speaks, the world listens. Thank you. All right.
It's one word in dictionary.com.
It's one word.
That's what she said.
It's in Reggie.com too.
That is Latin, so it's italicized.
But in Wikipedia, it's 2 words. I know.
The source of all truth, written by 7th graders. Wikipedia, that is. Okay, so we've looked it up. It is one word, etc. According to dictionary.com. It is 2 words and some other references. And I'm going to leave it at that, etc. etc.
Wow.
Okay, then we've got BC, AD, AM, and PM. Let's talk about AM and PM. Is it small letters? Is it capital letters? Lillian Morrison said it's small letters. When I became a court reporter, I must have been absent the day they talked about that in school. And when I started doing my transcripts out in the real world, learning what it is to be a real court reporter, I had an AM at the beginning of a sentence. Did you get home at 3 o'clock AM or 3 o'clock PM? Answer, AM, period, question. And then it went on. And when I saw this capital A period, small m period, I looked at that and I thought, my, that looks goofy. So I made that capital A period, capital M period, so it wouldn't look goofy. And I've learned through the years and since, and a little research, that generally speaking, we can definitely use all caps for AM and PM. Margie Wakeman-Wells is now teaching all caps. And researching it, I've seen it both ways. If you want to read enough on it, be my guest. It's another one of those nobody cares. Just, if you know it was 3 o'clock PM, they had had lunch and they had plenty of time to get to the murder scene and pull the trigger before the person died. So they care more about the interesting meat of the subject matter, not, she did a capital letter and the other one did a small, oh, goodness. They are not our theory teacher, yes.
How would you, I was always taught with the, how would you write 3 o'clock?
Okay, let's talk about o'clock. Thank you. How would you write 3 o'clock? I was taught one way in school. I went to a fabulous school, by the way. I love my school. Not at the time. And I was taught you do the 3 o'clock one particular way. And that was it. If you didn't do it their way, you got marked wrong. Well, I was not going to adopt a snotty tude attitude. Right? I was not going to do that in order to prove myself right and do it not their way. Very easy to do it their way and move on with your life. When I got out into the world and I looked at court reporters' transcripts, real transcripts from real court reporters, this court reporter did it this way, that court reporter did it that way, and this way and that way. And my partner, Pat Cuneo, who was one of the most brilliant, and is still one of the most brilliant court reporters on the planet, she started mastering her real-time skills in 1984. And Tran, when she became my partner, she tranned at a 99.9%, sometimes 100%. And when I tell you she's phenomenal, believe me, she is. Well, now she did 3 o'clock, the worst way I've ever seen. And after I looked at it, and I've never seen it before like that, it was wrong. I thought, my goodness, this is wrong. and I got over it. And we worked together for a few years. And once we worked together for a few years, how many times did I notice the way she wrote it? It became non-important, a non-issue. So my message to you folks is, whatever you do, it's fine, okay? Now, I will tell you what I do, and it's because I just made a decision. Nobody empowered me to come up with my own decisions, but I'm a bit of a, well, you can tell, I have a bit of an attitude in life, don't I? And I just chose to do it my way. So 3 o'clock to me is 3:00. 5 o'clock is 5:00. No one has ever once come to me and said, you know, I said 5 o'clock. I didn't say 5:00. Our brain reads it, understands it, computes what we're talking about. Next subject. And that's the reason I chose to do that. What I was taught in school was when they say 3 o'clock, you must write 3:00, O''CLOCK. Other people have said, that's redundant. Well, you know what, I really don't care. I don't care what the school teaches, I don't care about redundant, I don't care about this or that, none of it matters to me. I just need to move on with my life. I would rather talk about a great dinner in Vegas. That included you. Okay, so here's the thing. Whatever you're doing is fine, and if you're on Eclipse, do we have any Eclipse people here? Okay, so Eclipse, my suggestion is you go to the number conversion, select the first one, which is, I believe it's 9:00 and then AM. That's how it is reflected. Check on that. It will always give you your numbers perfectly, unless you don't have any problem with your numbers. Are you good with your numbers?
I don't use the number bar. I learned to stroke out
You
the
should be
numbers.
coming to my workshop because we solve all number problems. Anybody have a problem with your numbers? Oh, we've got fabulous solutions. What's your software?
It's called SmartCat. I don't think
Okay.
anyone else has used
Yeah,
it.
SmartCat is the old cheetah.
Yeah. I'll check.
And, okay, good. Anyway, there's automatic number conversion. It is wonderful on Case Catalyst. It's wonderful on ProCat. It's wonderful on Eclipse. And to use that could give you great value. Cut your editing time. All right. So let's go back to o'clock. Whatever you want to do is fine. Some people will say, well, how would you write this, Anita? They got home between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I write THREE and FIVE. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I write 3:00. It depends on my mood. It depends on my algorithms. It depends on the sun. In other words, I really don't care, and neither does anybody else. And we can pontificate this for 5 hours. You can say o'clock, and you put colon and you're right. So I'm wrong, you're right. Terrific, congratulations. Yes.
Okay, numbers. Do you, 1 through 10, do you write them out? Or do you put them, or like if they were to say 2 to 20 years, would you write out the 2, or would you put digits?
Excellent
or would
question.
you be consistent?
Let's
you know,
address.
My Scopus and my Scopus and my Proofer, they have problems.
They fight. Okay. Her Scopus and her Proofer fight over numbers because do you put digits? Do you put numbers? Do you write it in words 1 to 10? Do you, like if you say 2 to 20 years, is it TWO to TWENTY, or is it digit 2 to digit 20? So there are these problems, and oh my goodness. This is another one. How many of you write 1 to 10 in words? Let me see your hands. How many of you write? I just want to see if you're listening.
It's either percent.
Yeah. Or ratio.
Yeah.
How many of you write 1 to 10 in words? Generally speaking. Like I have 10, I have 9 books. I have 3 words. All right, is that 100%? 100% of the people here write words 1 to 10 in words. My next question, why? Don't tell me because your teacher told you to. What is the logic behind that, folks?
Greg's reference manual.
Greg's reference manual, great. What's the logic behind it?
numbers under 10 are written out, that's just.
I think there is a law.
Numbers under 10 are written out, and I don't know. Folks, I don't think there's a person on the planet who knows the reason of that rule. And my friend Catherine Parker Reike, when she became a captioner in 2000, decided to do everything in digits because in captions, it's very easy to read digits. So she was a very naughty girl, and if they said she had 3 cameras, it was a digit 3. And guess what happened?
I use all digits. I've never written out a number, ever. 1, 2, because if it's an exhibit, if it's just easier.
So it's easier, you write digits all the time.
All the time. Nobody's ever called me on it, so.
No one has ever called her on it. A woman who thinks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever.
A woman who thinks. I think that's fabulous. Truly. I mean, really, when you think about it, why are we so hung up on all this nonsense?
Because they tell us to be.
Exactly, because they tell us to be. Who is they? They is your teacher at school. God love them, they meant well. I think they were trained to make neuronics out of calculators. We are crazy in our brains because of what we've been taught. In those days, we didn't know any better.
What about the first week of sentence, though? We're always-
I'm going to wait till we have conversation going.
How old are you?
We'll take
One of.
That's all right. Yes, go
We
ahead.
were always told the first word of the sentence if it was a number, unless
That's
it was
another one.
multi-syllabic, had to be, like if it was an address, and they stated out, or 2328, fourth line, something like that, then you would write the digits.
Yeah,
But
isn't
if
it?
they said 2 years ago, I went to then you write out TWO.
Okay, so that was interesting. They taught us at the beginning of a sentence, if it's numbers, you write them out in words. Yes? No? Okay. I was absent that day from school. Honestly, I swear I was, because I never heard that. So it was about 15 or 20 years into reporting when I read that or heard that somewhere, maybe at a seminar. I thought, oh, really? Because, you know, how many times did you hit the ball? Answer, 98 times. I put 98.
Well, that's
And then
what
the
we
word
were
times.
saying. But if it was, I guess, 8 times, if the answer was 8 times, we would have been told you have to write the word out.
All right, so if it's 8 times, E-I-G-H-T, you would write, yes, because 1 to 10 you're supposed to do in words. Well, I will tell you, I still go back and do my 1 to 10 in words. Because I was taught that way, I think it's ridiculous. I love Susan's way. Susan does all digits, period, end of sentence.
Beginning of sentence, whatever.
Beginning, middle, and anything, it's all digits. I'm with you, kid, but I never quite gave up the habit of writing those digits, you know, I mean, writing the words out. I'd like to now address that 2 to 20 years. Here's the rule. You want to conform. Be consistent. It can be TWO to TWENTY, or it could be digit 2 to digit 20. Because you could say, how many years did you get 2 to 20? You could say, well, because 2's at the beginning of the sentence, you write it as a word. Well, how about this sentence? So how many years did you get? Answer, oh man, I got 2 to 20 years. Now it's in the middle of a sentence. So the technical rule is both are correct. Just be consistent. Lillian and Margie want you to be consistent. I think they're the only 2 on the planet who want you to be consistent. No, I'm just kidding. They're wonderful. Don't ever think I'm talking less than wonderfulness for both of them. Okay. So anyway, does that answer your question on numbers, the 2 to 20? Yes, generally speaking, if it's numbers over 10, you know, how many times did you go to the movies? Answer, well, I went to the movies either 15 or 16 times. We would use digits because it's over 10, generally speaking. And not only that, but it's easy to read. Another thought process that I thought Catherine had thought of that was brilliant is she changed everything to digits like Susan does because she said that it's easier on a keyword search. Remember, some of us, I mean, I'm the oldest one here, so I know that you're not as old as I am, but some of you have been around kind of a while, And did I do that tactfully? Kind of a while, and you were, now why did I say? Reggie, you cracked me up. Reggie, you're gonna have to come up here so everybody, come in. Yeah, you gotta come up here. Reggie. Are you gonna turn down
The people online.
Reggie, come on up here. What did she say?
He didn't wear his suit, he's normally impeccably dressed.
Yes.
And his Armani.
Oh, give me the man looks drop dead gorgeous. He's not wearing a suit. On a Saturday morning. Reggie, we're both wearing pink, we would match. You're bad. Okay, let's go back to work. Let's do the right thing here. Where were we? Would you read that back?
You were talking about keyword search.
Yes, keyword search. That was not discussed when I went to school. We didn't have computers when I went to school. So that thought process was non-existent, but today we know that that's a very, very common thought process that can create value to attorneys. So what is wrong with letting them search digits and numbers? Blending with the times. I'm just offering you thoughts and ideas. You get to do it your way, but you're fine however you choose to do it. The technical answer to your question, 2 to 20, as you know, both are correct. Just be consistent. That's what they want. All right. Great. Are there any other questions about numbers? Okay. So we have the periods with the following: AM, PM, US, NYC, etc. LA, junior, senior. Has anybody written in a transcript? Answer. What is your name? Answer. Bill Jones Jr. I don't normally go by junior. And you get the J, capital J, small r, period, period. Anybody get 2 periods at the end of a sentence like that? And your software, Reggie, is?
Case Catalyst.
Case Catalyst, okay. What you want to do, how many case catalysters do we have here? Okay, good. Very nice number of case. What you want to do, Reggie, is take your, however you write capital JR period, that's stroke, maybe if you add an asterisk to distinguish it from the word junior. And the next outline is FPLT period, is that correct? Take those 2 outlines together, that special stroke for the JR period and then the FPLT, the 2 outlines together, highlight them both, a 2-stroke definition, and give it your capital J, small r period, space, cap next letter.
What if it's at the end of the sentence and it automatically puts in your punctuation and we don't know all the period?
Yeah.
Exactly. If your software automatically punctuates the end of a sentence, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
At the end of a question, though, or at the end of the answer, when you just
Oh,
answer
okay.
a question.
What is your sister's name? Sally Smith Sr.
And then I just
How long have you been married to Mr. Smith? You know, or whatever. My point is, if you're doing Sally Smith Sr. period, and now you've got the new question, you have no issue with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 spaces. It's at the end of a sentence. But it's when you have that JR period, and then you've written the period, because it's the end of a sentence.
It's not.
Now, normally, most of you probably did not get 2 periods together. Your software will integrate them and make them correct. A period and then spaces and cap next, or whatever the intelligence is on your CAT software. But in his case, he does get 2 periods. Some people do. Not a lot, but a few. And that is a workaround. So you can do junior, senior, AM, PM. I got home at 4 o'clock a.m., then I went to the store. I got home at 4 o'clock, A period, M period, period. Then I went to the store. That's what we're talking about, right? And when you get two periods, if you can come up with a little list of as many of these acronyms or abbreviations that end in a period, and give the next stroke FPLT, highlight the two strokes together, give it the single period. That's what Case Catalyst programmers have told me to tell you. Okay? All right. Maybe they'll fix it someday. I don't know. Maybe. You never know. But they do great stuff. There's a lot of wonderful features in that Case Catalyst updates. All right. So this gives you a little idea on those periods. Esquire, Inc., and verses. Small v is your verses. Small v period, technically. If you do VER-SUS, again, you don't go to jail. You're fine. But technically, it's a small v period for Roe versus Wade, that type of thing. Are there any questions about periods with acronyms or abbreviations? Okay, the question mark. With tack-on phrases after a question, put the question mark after the question part of the sentence. How injured was he, is all I need to know. It's actually a sentence that is being spoken. But it's a complete question. How injured was he, question mark, is all I need to know.
I wouldn't have the
I
I.
wouldn't either.
Okay, I'm sharing with you what some of the research shows, and this comes from Marchie Wakeman Wells' English grammar book. Okay? Put the question mark after the first question asked and at the end of a second or several questions. Where did they drive? Do you recall? Now, I don't know about you, but I tend to put semicolon, do you recall? A lot of us, do you know, do you recall, will do semicolon there. And our English books are illustrating question mark and then question mark again. So I don't know what to tell you other than this is what some of the research shows. To use two question marks, technically it is correct. And if we do you recall at the end like that, it's another one of those what I call almost a throwaway phrase. I mean, it has importance. They really want to know if you remember that. Do you recall? But they illustrate it as question mark, question mark. Where did you live in 2013? Was it with your brother? Again, two questions, question marks. How about your sister? Was she available to drive you? Again, two complete questions. And when did you drive away? 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? They want you to put question marks at the end of each question. Now, some people might put commas. I would probably have put commas all through the years with that. I'd say, when did you drive away? 3 o'clock, comma, 5 o'clock, comma, 7 o'clock, comma, 8 o'clock, question mark. But the grammar books are saying put question marks. So now, hopefully you're thoroughly confused. Okay. What was his medical condition or situation? Mild, serious, critical, grave? Again, they suggest in the latest grammar rules question marks. And
Here's
put a
your
question.
ellipsis.
Pardon me?
Here's your ellipsis.
Reggie just informed us. The handout is now illustrating ellipses. Yes, there are our ellipses. And I think they look very pretty there, don't you? Because something is straight along. If it were dashes, well, I think dashes are fine too, but we won't tell anybody that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Put the question mark after an idiom that starts a question. How about, or what about, and also when a question is first asked and another after the inferred answer. What about the medicine? Question mark. Did it help you? Question mark. How about the new group? Did they show up at the meeting yesterday? And etc. So there are examples where we would use two question marks. Questions? All right. A colon and a new sentence. If a prefatory statement starts, a phrase starting a sentence that gets a colon, in contrast to a simple sentence. Let me know this. How fast were you traveling? That would beg for a colon. Let me know how fast you were traveling. That's the same idea as the sentence. I am asking you this. Who did you leave the party with? So it would be, I am asking you this colon. Or, of course, if the other sentence did not require a colon, it would be, I am asking you who you left the party with. And again, we would not put a question mark after that statement because it's not technically a question. My question is, did you share contraband, etc.? Okay. And what I'm asking you is, my question is, colon, did you share contraband with the other 3 people? My question is if you shared contraband with the other 3 people. Okay, so, yes. Yes.
I am asking you who you left the party with, and then if the person comes back and says, who, me? Or they says, me?
That's a question. So I would write, the question was, my question is who you left the party with. Answer, who, me?
Or me.
Or just me? You can hear the question mark in the tone of voice, and I would end that answer with an ME question mark.
But my question is, you inferred that the me was a question. Why didn't you infer that the I am asking you who you left the party with is a question? Because technically, when they said me, even though they raised their voice.
Okay, great. So here's the sentence we're talking about on page 9. I am asking you who you left the party with.
Because some people...
The sentence starts off, I am asking you. So it's inferring, I am asking you this, period. But because it ends with who you left the party with, it's part of that sentence that starts, I am asking you who you left the party with.
Right. My question is, like, some people always put question marks no matter what.
Yes.
Because the attorneys, they make statements.
Yes.
And they say, well, that was a question. And it's like,
right. And so I want to repeat that you say some people put question marks all the time. And the attorney might give a comment, that was a question. Okay, folks, you need to use your best judgment, but technically speaking, let me ask the group, because I know what I would do. So group, you answer me. Here is the sentence, and you tell me, how many of you would put a question mark at the end of this sentence? I am asking you who you left the party with. How many of you would put a question mark at the end of that? You would put a period?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we did have 100% say they would put a period with that sentence.
Because it's a statement.
No.
It is a
I'm asking you.
Technically, it is a statement because they're saying, I am asking you.
I agree, but I'm just talking about in general.
Yes.
They make a lot of statements, but their intent is that these are questions. So
Okay, they make a lot of sentences.
They're always making statements.
And their intent is they're asking a question. If you can give me an example, I'd love to hear it, and we can talk about that. If you can come up with an example. Other than saying that, I'm going to say, use your best judgment. Yes?
Well, let's say, so you went to the store, and they'll say yes. You took 10 minutes, yes. And you went over there knowingly, yes.
Okay, so this is what's being said. So you went to the store, yes. And you took 10 minutes, yes. And you purchased those books, yes. Well, if they say, so you went to the store, answer, yes. And you took 10 minutes, yes. And you purchased all those books, yes. What I would do if I were doing this transcript, I would put a question mark after each question. But if I hear, so you went to the store, yes. You were there 10 minutes, yes. You purchased 5 books, yes. When I hear the voice go down, I put a period. When I hear the voice go up, I put a question mark. Now, do you disagree? Talk to me. I love when you disagree.
Because they're asking leading questions.
Okay, they're asking leading questions, then maybe you should put a question mark after
But they
each one.
technically are statements.
Okay, so what would you do?
I do the same thing you do, and this is why. Because they are usually reiterating what's already been testified about. So they're basically, the lawyer's going back and he's confirming. So you went to the store, you did this, blah, 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 after he had already asked them. So if it's a statement, like you said, I do a period. I mean, because, and I also do it because of this. The other side will start objecting because he's making statements.
Okay, good. So April will put the periods in because the attorney is basically reiterating, is reviewing what's already been asked, and now is confirming the information. And April will put the periods in, and then the other side might object.
Because it's a statement.
Because it's a statement instead of a
It is a
question.
statement, they can put, didn't you at the end or?
Right.
Right.
They'll object for it because it's not asking a question.
Okay,
I think it comes back to your common sense.
it comes back to common sense. Thank you. Thank you. Use your judgment, folks. You're intelligent, well-trained, college-educated, English-type people. So, use your common sense on that. But, thank you. All right, great questions. Are there any other questions? Okay. So that takes care of those question marks, the colon and the question. And then the comma. Oh, you know what's not in here in the handout, but I'm going to talk about it? How do we punctuate a statement and then it's a question? I heard you ask, what time does the party start? How would you punctuate that, folks?
I heard you ask,
what time did the party start, period.
Okay, I heard you ask, comma, what time does the party start, period? That's one answer. I think this is in the quoted section. Now, I'm telling you one answer. This is what she answered, okay? I mean, you can disagree, it's okay to disagree. I love it when we disagree. We kind of get to the meat of the matter, but she still is giving us an answer, Janet. And we'll do this in a few minutes when we get to the quotes. But anybody else have an answer on that?
Well, I would quote it.
I would quote it.
I wouldn't quote it, I'd do what Jana did.
You would do what Jana did, okay? Anybody else? So, what was the sentence again?
I heard you say, what time did you
I heard you say, what time did you get home?
What time did the party start?
Say, comma, and then I.
What time did the party start?
I heard you, how about ask? It doesn't matter,
I
does
heard
it?
you ask,
I heard you ask, comma, what time does the party start?
what time does the party start? Question mark, end quote.
And then would you put a period
No.
after that? Okay, so here's what Reggie says. I heard you ask, comma, quote, capital W, what time does the party start, interrog, question mark, end quote. So in that case, the quote is in, the question mark is in the quotes.
Yes.
But if you are asking a question, how about something like this? Did you mean to say, I never wear blue? That would be, did you mean to say, comma, quote, I, capital I, never wear blue, end quote, question mark. So that's when the question mark would go outside. Because we know that the period and comma always goes inside a quote. Which I think is a bit strange, because what if you're quoting an acronym or something like that, and you put the comma in the quote? But
Yeah, I struggle over that.
don't, let it go.
It's like, it says, did you say DVD, or was it a DVD or something, you have.
Did you say DVD is a perfect example?
Well, I
You're
would
saying
say
close that?
I mean, no,
Since you had come back from the store, did you say I bought a, no, I don't know. Let's move on. I can't come up with a great example. All right. The comma. There's a little guy who's used quite often. Commas serve to separate or to push two elements apart in a sentence so they don't run together. Commas also serve to set off a surrounding element in a sentence, and also for positives. Wouldn't you call an appositive a surrounding element?
Yes.
I think I would.
Yes.
Okay. So separators, I wanted to leave, but no one would let me. It's correct to put a comma there. Now, you could argue that "but no one would let me" is a short sentence, and you could technically not necessarily do a comma between the two sentences. So that might be one of those optionals. I don't know. Everyone felt pressure, the pressure of the deadline, comma, yet no one completed the task. And he was a strong, confident leader. Yes, you would put a comma. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Are you coming back?
Yes, I'll be back. I'm going to a meeting. I was letting them know I put the sound equipment in that big bag right there for Jeff. I don't know if I'll be back for lunch, but I'll be back.
You better be.
I'll try.
And you have a fabulous meeting.
Thank you.
Pam's going to be our speaker this afternoon.
Okay.
How many of you have heard Pam speak before? Oh, quite a few of you. She's delightful. She's full of fun and games. So, okay. He was a strong, confident leader. It is fun to live in Las Vegas, Nevada. We always use a comma between a city and a state. And we never use a comma between what? Anybody know? A state and a zip code. Right. We never do a comma there. More logic, right? I
For the
have no
month of
idea.
the year, they always do that. Oh,
Who does it?
it's in our manual.
A comma before the zip code?
No, they'll have like September 2015, and it'll be September, comma, 2015. And it's in our,
So in his manual, he's got September, comma, 2015.
It's all, but
And it's wrong. It
It's
should be
the same
September 2015 without the comma.
manual.
Well, folks, that's why we review these things. I've done some research. I see some things, and when I research, sometimes I see different answers. For example, we're going to get to it later, but let me just ask you this question. How do you spell supersede?
S-U-P-E-R-C-E-D-E.
Okay, Reggie said S-U-P-E-R-C-E-D-E. Does everyone agree with Reggie?
Yes.
Does anyone disagree with Reggie? Well, we're going to do that word later. We're going to talk about it. Let's move on. Separators, setting off a thought. They went to lunch when the meeting was dragging and became more refreshed. She asked Allison, her best friend, to take over. They needed the help of Mr. Bishop, the senior attorney, to complete the proposal. So you can see positives here, those separators. It is correct to use commas. I admire his approach, by the way, to confront difficult issues. Folks, what we're doing is we're reviewing some basic grammar rules. We're giving you examples. If you disagree, as far as I'm concerned, I'm on board with however you decide to do things. Reggie just said his manual has something illustrated that's incorrect. I just talked about something that was two different ways, etc., two words, etc., one word. So, in other words, there might be more than one right answer. I've seen some discrepancies between Lillian Morrison's work and Margie Wakeman Wells' work. And I wouldn't dare to say either one of them is incorrect because they're both phenomenal, they're both incredibly brilliant. Margie's around today and she gives a lot of lectures today and writes books and she's online. So that's great. But I'm just saying that, I should have said, I'm just saying. Yes, I've seen Wendy once or twice. Cancel that video. Two complete sentences are separated with a comma. A complete and incomplete sentence do not take a comma.
Thank you.
The car has a turbocharged engine and it has a smooth ride. Two complete sentences, a comma. The car has a turbocharged engine which has a smooth ride. That is an incomplete sentence. No comma. Absolutely no comma between a dependent and an independent clause. No comma. We often go to the movies and sometimes we go out to eat with a comma. We often go to the movies and sometimes go out to eat. No comma. Okay? So did that clarify something for you?
No, it's just one of my pet peeves. I have so many people putting commas.
Oh, it's a pet peeve, and it would be mine too, because that would bother me too, to see a comma in a dependent and an independent clause. So you're absolutely right, there is no comma there. Okay. The truck drivers drove through 5 states, and they were so exhausted, so that would get a comma. And 2 full sentences, and the truck drivers drove through 5 states and were so exhausted. No comma. Are we good?
Yes.
Great. 2 short, complete sentences often are not separated by commas. They sang with joy and everyone smiled. That's actually the optional comma. If you are doing a WKT test, a written knowledge test, and you do put a comma there, it should be called correct. If you leave the comma out, it should be called correct. Because there are times when there are optional commas. And it is correct to divide 2 complete sentences. However, the trend is do not put a comma with 2 very short sentences. When a sentence is only 3 or 4 words, you can do it without the comma. Okay, we owe $350 and they owe $124. Another example of short sentences. Text the final bid and mark it confidential. Yes, you could do confidential in quotes, but this is not the quotes chapter. So, all right. So that gives you just a little idea of short sentences not separated with a comma. Use a comma to separate the year from the date and month. They opened July 27, 2014. She passed her CRR on May 17, 2013, after taking it 3 times. So when you've got the date and the year, put the comma after the year. That is correct. I visited him in the hospital on Friday, January 23, 2015, after I ate lunch, etc. Okay? Questions? Zip codes following a city or state do not get preceded by a comma.
And zip is supposed to be jam-packed.
Pardon me?
Zip is supposed to be jam-packed. ZIP zip code?
Oh, right, because it's an acronym or an abbreviation. Well, that's an interesting one. ZIP, Z-I-P, all caps, because it stands for an abbreviation of 3 words.
And it's trademarked.
And it's trademarked. I knew that. Is it trademarked? I didn't know that. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So ZIP should be all caps. Thank you, Reggie. This is good stuff, let me tell you. You know why it's good stuff? Because as we use it, we learn. Everybody now knows that ZIP is all caps. I don't think we tend to do it. I think it's shown both ways, but it's great to know what the actual rule is. Thank you. Yes.
So it wouldn't be wrong if we zip, lowercase zip, right?
Zip code type of thing?
Yeah, I see it everywhere.
All right, is it wrong? Here's what I'm going to answer. I would Google it and check it out myself and see what the internet shows, because I think we all Google stuff anyway.
It's trademark, certified mail.
Right.
It's capital.
Okay. See, Reggie used to work in the post office.
this thing called court reporting, they make you look a lot of stuff up.
I was thinking you were taking the test, maybe it's a mistake test and they're gonna count it wrong or something.
No, they publish this stuff.
Folks, I'll tell you, the comment was made if you were taking a test and preparing a transcript, would it be called wrong? You receive a document called What is an Error if you're going to take the CRR, the Certified Real-Time Test. And they will tell you how they mark things. What is an error, what is acceptable. And if you have any extra questions, for example, if they do not use the word zip on that what is an error, you can always call NCRA and ask them. They are not out to trick you. They are not out to make you wrong. They want to know your general knowledge. They want to know, how do you write if a deaf person is reading this? That is basically the criteria. How would this be readable? And that's what they want, readability. But anyway, it would be a great question to ask NCRA because I don't know the answer to that myself. And thank you. Good thought. Okay. So we've illustrated a few zip codes without a comma. Use a comma to separate titles, but not Roman numerals. My son is John Paul III. Number one, we do not write the word the. So you do not write THE. And the third is Roman numeral 3. And there's no comma between Paul and third. So right here. They interviewed Paul Glasgow, MD, yesterday. So MD is a title. You do put a comma with titles. Could you believe that her son, John Jr., graduated college? Again, the title, John Jr., that would require a comma. They studied Henry VIII in school. No commas. The attorney did not call on his son, Stephen III, to testify. Of course, we have Stephen III, comma, with the comma because it's in a positive. It's the same as the word son. It's just giving the descriptor of who the son is. It's Stephen III. And he banned Alex Anderson, Esquire, from the courtroom. Now, you could write out the word Esquire. And that's okay. It's acceptable. You can write ESQ period, referring to an attorney. That's kind of the technical abbreviation that is appropriate and well used. That gives you a few examples of those commas. Okay, we've already talked about sick on page 11, the top of page 11. We used to use parentheses around sick to indicate something was spoken wrong. Since today we use a more modern keyboard, it is appropriate and it is correct to use straight brackets for sick. Did you know that?
It should be italicized inside the brackets.
Pardon me?
It should be italicized inside the brackets as well.
Okay, Reggie said it should be italicized inside the bracket.
Because it's Latin.
Because it's Latin, okay. Folks, here's the deal. Reggie might be correct today, but let me go back 10 years ago when we did everything in ASCII. Sometimes italics and sometimes underlining messed with ASCII formatting. And I don't know what your final formatting is, and I don't know if it accepts italics.
PDF.
So, okay, but if it does, and if you want to italicize it, great. I personally bolded it, but the bottom line here is it does take straight brackets, and if your formatting and everything supports italics, great, absolutely. I have no problem with that at all. Very, very good. Thank you. All right, so she was born in 1993 sick. I would only use that if they talked about she was born in 1995. And before her birth in 1995, did you have any cramping or, whatever. And then if they were constantly talking about 1995 is her birth, then when they say, actually, she was born in 1993 and it was a misspoken comment, and you knew it was misspoken, that's the only time I would put sick. If they're just saying it out of a clear blue sky and we don't really know when she was really born, I would not put sick. Only when it's super obvious, okay? The accident on May 30, 1989, sick, was fatal. Again, if it had been established it was a different date and somebody just misspoke. It was really May 30th, 1999. And they said May 30th, 1989. I don't know about you. Have you ever just changed a year when they said it one way and it should have been something else? Have you ever done that? I have. True confession. If I knew the date, but would I do it today? Probably not. But I've done that in the past. Guilty. All right. We've talked a lot about writing verbatim, so that's good. If an error is corrected immediately, do not use sit. The opening of the school in 2005 was well celebrated. I mean, it was 2006. The opening of the school, then you don't need the sit because it's dashes, and I use dashes. Dashes, I mean it was 2006. So when they correct the year right away, don't use sick. In other words, we don't want to use sick too often. We need to use it every so often. And I love what you said, you're absolutely right. If there's the same mistake being made over and over again, a mispronunciation of a name, or whatever else is an error over and over again, I only put sick once. Just the first time it is misspoken and then leave it. So we don't overdo sick. Okay. Use a comma with a single word parenthetical at the beginning or in a sentence. Sure, we were frightened of him. Gosh, I thought the lecture would never end. It was like 100 degrees in that sweltering room. The word like is not technically supposed to be similar, like 98, 99, 101, 102. The inference is supposed to be here like a throwaway word. You know, like they all should have been fired. Again, it's not that you're saying similar to or like, it's just the throwaway word. And you can see that we are surrounding it with commas. And well, you should know the answer to that. And now, what did your friend tell you that made you scared? So again, any word that you find you write often and you need commas around it, create a stroke. Like L long I-K, L-O-I-K, like. And define that with the commas, or L long I-K with the asterisk. Some distinctive stroke and make it a little easier on your life. Well, I'm going to give you one more tip now, okay? If you write something and you have a tendency to misstroke something often, invent a new stroke. My example is, I used to write 7, S-E-F-N. I don't know about you, I don't like F-N. I always have to have my middle fingernail short, really short, so it fits on the end better. And I would misstroke FN. Sometimes I would drag my R and it would be FRPB. Are y'all with me on this?
Yeah.
So when I misstroke 7 and misstroke 7 and misstroke 7, I gave myself a gift. I call it giving yourself a gift. I changed 7 to S-E-N. It was an untranslate. You always do this work while you've got a setup with real time. You've got your writer and your computer. And when I did S-E-N, it was an untran. As long as something is an untran, you know you can use it. And even if it trend is something else, I might decide, gosh, I haven't used that in a long time. I think I'll not do that one. Okay, question for Eclipse and Case Catalyst. I'm not sure about the other softwares. I do not believe StenoCap has this. I do not believe SmartCat has it, but maybe I'm wrong, so I don't know. Are you folks aware, if you're on Case Catalyst or Eclipse, that you have instant access to how many times you've used a steno outline, and you have instant access to the last date you used it? Yes or no? How many know that? Raise your hand. How many do not know that? Okay. Oh, I have something wonderful to tell you. When you go to your dictionary, Case or Eclipse, just to the right, you're going to see the last date you used an outline, and how many times have you used it? Because you're writing along, you want to invent a new stroke. I want to do this stroke for, meaning not calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. Boom, one stroke. You all have one stroke for that, don't you?
No. What is it?
What is it? It's whatever you decide it to be. It's a single stroke.
Oh, it could be.
You want me to feed you a fish for a day?
Yeah.
Or his answer was, yeah.
Exclamation point.
Exclamation. Folks, you can be inventive, even if you don't invent briefs, and if you're a complete writer-outer and you hate briefs, it's okay. You can still invent one brief. I'm not asking you to invent a whole bunch and to get your brain crazy. But if you write a phrase over and over and over and over again, come up with one stroke. All right, so that's just a tip. So I chose to write SEN for 7, and I'm telling you my life was so much easier after that. Because I think my SEFR PB was serve, and that was a misstroke. It should have been SEFRB, but I would drag the N, the P. So I just have trouble with those couple of letters. And it's just so much nicer to give yourself a gift of an easier stroke. If you are editing a misstroke often, it's time to stop and say, computer, I want you to do the work for me. I'm not going to keep doing this work. I want you to work. Then you invent something. It's just a lot of fun, folks. Okay?
I have a friend that will not put a word in her dictionary if she misstrokes it, even though it doesn't trend to any other word.
Okay.
So she has it in your dictionary.
So she has a friend who will not put any word in her dictionary that is not stroked out perfectly.
Yeah.
So her misstrokes are not defined. Your friend has my condolences. For the record, we always want to define misstrokes. It's called cheating. That's how I'm a clean real-time writer. I define misstrokes. So you are 100,000% correct. Janet.
Yes.
Janet. And your friend is unfortunately misguided. Either she invented it or some person gave her bad advice. But you might let her know that all of the great... How many of you would never define a misstroke? Raise your hand if you would never define a misstroke.
Let me clarify that. My teacher, that's what he taught me in school, never to define a misstroke, and he would say that's trashing up your dictionary. But I do trash it up a lot now.
You have my congratulations. She's got my condolences. Okay, the comment was her teacher told her to never define a misstroke because you're trashing up your dictionary. And she ignored her teacher, imagine it. And she puts in misstrokes, and her translation was much nicer. What a concept. Here is my take on this. I absolutely believe in calling it whatever you want. It's a label. I don't call it trashing up your dictionary. I call it refining and defining your dictionary and having beautiful work as an end product. I don't care how you get beautiful work as an end product. But I want to see beautiful work as an end product. And one thing that I strongly recommend for people is they do one of two things. Either go through your whole dictionary, and there are techniques to do that, one letter at a time. It could take you an hour for a letter. I don't know, it takes forever. But you either go through every outline in your dictionary, one letter at a time, or scrap your dictionary and start from scratch. I hear horror sounds.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, folks, I did it. I did it 4 years ago. And what I did was I got Anita Nirenberger's Dictionary Jumpstart. There's Monette Benoit's Catapult. Fabulous program. And you can build a dictionary on that. So there are 2 programs out there that I'm aware of. There might be more. But I'm aware of those 2, and they're both great. I would support both of them. I personally just happen to have gone through Dictionary Jumpstart. I loved it because it automatically put words right into the dictionary. I did not need to type in any English. It put in all derivatives, past tense, plurals, INGs, etc. And it took me about 30 hours. I was determined, so I did it in 6 days. Is it time consuming? You better believe it. But guess what? I have a pristine dictionary. How many times do you write and you've either got your old theory dictionary that you started with or your friend's dictionary that you borrowed? Can I borrow your dictionary? And you write and I go, where did that come from? I don't write that. How clean is your dictionary? How much translates the way you write? If you've used someone else's dictionary and you've gotten out all of the mistranslates through the years, great. I only care about end results. The teacher who said to you, do not define any misstrokes, do not define trash, here's my take on that. I misstroke. I drag my L. I know I'm the only one, right? Okay. I drag my L. I've heard people give real-time seminars and they say, you must write and lift your fingers and do not drag your L. Just write the T when it's the T and just write the P when it's the P. Do not drag that L. And I thought that's marvelous advice. I think that just sounds fantastic. It's not what I do. I'm still me. And what I do is I teach what I call reality real time. And my reality real time is SEN for 7. My reality is it comes out clean, it's easy to stroke, and I love it. And I love what's showing up on the screen. I do not call that trash. The word trash is a negative word. I don't like negativity. I don't know who your teacher is, but your teacher invented something, and I very respectfully, totally, 1000% disagree. Would you like to know how I really feel about this? So,
I have a scopist, and she'll put, let me global this, because she sees my writing, and she sees how I misstroke, and she knows I go, yes, and she'll do it.
okay, so Susan has a scopist, and she says, let me global this. She sees the writing and she wants the global. Is that globaling 2 or 3 words together? Or is that globaling just defining a word?
Just that one word.
Oh, all right. Then when Susan said she globals this, that's fine. I'd call that define it in the database or the dictionary. I refer to it as a database. I found court reporters don't feel negative to themselves or intimidated if you were to answer somebody like, well, what is all that? Goofy writing or whatever. If you say, oh, that's just information not yet put in the database. They feel better with that. If you say, well, it's not in my dictionary yet, but I'm going to put it in. I mean, it'll get in there very soon. Folks, number 1, don't whine. Number 2, the word dictionary is a term of art. It's what we use. We know it. It's not Merriam-Webster. I saw an attorney once hand a court reporter who said something wasn't in her dictionary. He says, well, here's my dictionary. Here's my Merriam-Webster. You can look it up. So the idea here is make sure that we talk our term of art. When I talk about translation rate, maybe to you in our world, we'll say, so what are you tran at? Oh, I'm at 98.4, and I'm at 99.6, or whatever it is, 93.7. That's our term of art. That's how we talk to each other. I would never say that to the outside world. I'll tell you what I say to the attorneys, the outside world. Is that okay? We're diverting from punctuation?
Sure.
You okay with that? Sure. We could go back to comments. I will tell an attorney, because I believe we must educate attorneys. If we're going to do real time, if they don't understand and they see errors and they have a certain expectation level, which is transcript preparation, so that it's perfect, and they look at real time and it's not perfect, then do you know there are some court reporters out there who think that their real time is supposed to look perfect? Can you imagine such a silly thought? Anyway.
There are judges who expect it to be perfect.
And judges? Well, it's because they're poorly educated. and it's our fault. We need to educate our end users. I like to tell an attorney or a judge, counsel, this is real time, this is fabulous technology, it's actually very, very exciting, it's like a miracle. I mean, you're actually going to be able to read over 90% of what's being said. Isn't that cool? 90% is what? In the academic world, 90% is an A. And an A is what? It's good. So the mental connection of 90%, A, good, oh, all right, cool. I get to read over 90%. Now, don't you think you'd feel more comfortable with a buffer of 10% error? Do you see what I'm saying? You make yourself feel better. There's nothing different, but anyway, I'm not going to go on and on about perceptions. I could, but anyway. So let the computer do the work for you. Rewrite something that is uncomfortable for you. All right. We were on commas. I believe we ended at page 10. The Roman numerals, the other no, we did a SIC, didn't we? Right. Okay. And when like is a throwaway, surround it with commas. Yes. Okay. Semicolon. Use when a coordinating conjunction, like and, but, however, or, yet, so, for, not, but omit it between two complete sentences. Also use a semicolon to separate a series of phrases that contain commas, like, she brought the book to class, she left her homework at home. Two very similar sentences, a semicolon is very appropriate. Is it wrong if you put a period? No. A semicolon is good, a period is good. She brought the book to class. She left her homework at home. They purchased 3 books, 2 pens, one of which was blue, and 4 clipboards. That would be the example of using semicolons to separate different items. You're separating books, pens, and clipboards. But you're separating them with a semicolon, not with a comma. And the reason is, we did a little extra description of the pens, one of which was blue. That is separated in commas. Questions about a semicolon? Okay? We good? All right. The colon, use after salutation in a business letter, Dear Mr. Snodgrass. If it's a more familiar or friendly letter, you can always use a comma, Dear Mr. Snodgrass. Used to introduce a list, we offer 3 supplies, a paintbrush, a canvas, and a small chair. To represent the word to when referring to a ratio, 5 to 1. Or to separate hours from minutes, we know that. And our CAT software takes care of times. By the way, if you ever do have a challenge with that, I would be glad to tell you, but in my workshop, we have a wonderful section on numbers, and I offer a single stroke to shorten times. For 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, single stroke. And for 1:45, 1:52, 2 strokes. And you've got a way to write that with the minutes. You just write the 1 part and then the 45 part, and it's formatted perfectly. So there are wonderful things that we can do in our writing. If anybody wants to know how to do that, I will be glad to tell you. I am not the kind of a teacher who's going to say, well, if you sign up for my workshop, then of course you'll get to learn how to do it. I can't stand when teachers do that. People do that in a room. They'll ask a question and the answer is, oh, that's in our advanced class. Sign up for that and you'll get that answer. So just talk to me, ask me any questions you'd like. And if you are on the online training program, you can email me a question. I'll be glad to answer you as well. Or you can call me. My phone number and email, I think, is on every page of everything I've ever done. Yeah, it's on the bottom. I'm easy to find. Okay, let's take a look on page 12 at word pairs. What are word pairs? Word pairs are homophones, like affect, effect. Affinity, infinity, allay, alley, alley, alter, words like that. I've listed for you a lot of common ones. If we have time today before we end our session, I'm going to come back to this page and we're going to review it. The source of these has been many sources. I've looked on the internet. I know that Margie Wakeman Wells listed about 5 or 6 of them in her book, which is great. This little book is called Word Trippers. This is a fabulous book. It's written by Barbara McNichol, and what it is a lot of these little words. For example, some people don't know this word exists. Let me find the word. It's on here. And the word is, look, we've got parity and parity. There's 2 separate words. And memento, memento, we talked about that. Leech and leech, okay? Here it is. Are you all familiar with gamble and gamble? Most people aren't. But with this little book, it's all alphabetized. So I love it because I just go anywhere here and I look it up alphabetically. And if they say the word gamble and you're not sure, H-I-G, E-F-G. G. Go to the G's. Here's the G's. And here's gamble and gamble. I'm going to read it to you. G-A-M-B-O-L. As a verb, it's to frolic, skip about playfully. As a noun, it means skipping or leaping about happily. Like a dove, or the animals are gamboling happily, frolicking about. G-A-M-B-L-E, I'll tell you what that one means. Gamble means to play at any game of chance for money or other stakes, to stake or risk anything of value on the outcome of something involving chance. Now, if you didn't know that, you need to come to Vegas and we need to spend a little time together. In opening a new store, the owners gamble it will be a success. And when it is, they'll gamble with delight. So just to hear different words and to see that they're spelled differently, this can be of tremendous value as a court reporter. Which word do you use? How do you spell it?
Breach and breach.
Say that again.
Breach and breach, like a breach.
Yes, excellent. Breach and breach. I wonder if that's in here. Let's look in this book. Let's say it came up. You weren't sure. Is it EA or EE? B. It's not in her book.
Wow.
So that's one that isn't. Okay? But that is a great word. I like that.
What about born and born?
Yeah, that's another very good one. Born and born. Yes, that's in here. Should I read it?
I don't care.
You don't care. She doesn't. Okay, well anyway, B-O-R-N, the definition of that is here. B-O-R-N-E, the definition of that is here also. Okay, so this is a great little book. It's $12, folks. It's not that expensive. It's on the internet. Go to the website and order it. I believe it's wordtrippers.com. And it's just a terrific book. I don't sell it. I just have this as a sample. She's a friend of mine from our speaker world. All right, let's take a look at one word, 2 words. That is altogether not ever going to happen. That's a bad sentence. But it can be one word and it's also 2 words. Always and always. Do you all have great ways to write these so that you can write 2 separate words versus 1 word? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. If you don't, address this and create 2 different ways to write this. Always, the first one, which is 1 word, isn't that ALS? Kind of a brief? Okay. And then always is 2 strokes. Anybody and any body. So anybody would be written in 1 stroke, yes? NIB? Did you write anybody NIB? I know, it's the word nib. Give it a rest. And any body. Now it's interesting because Margie in her book put there is no such word as 2 separate words, any body. I would think if you were a coroner and you were doing dead bodies, was there any body that showed knife marks? I don't know. That would something like that.
Yeah, any body of Body of
water.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of. Is there any body of water that does not have pollution? Yeah, so I personally put it in here as one word and two words. Any more and any more. Boy, that's common, isn't it? Any more and any more. Anyone and anyone. Yeah, we want clarity on that one. Same with any place, any time, any way, everybody, every day, etc. So you can see these, and where we get to in, into, and in space too. Just have clear, clean, consistent ways. I find many people have two ways to write in, but they mix them up, and they're not consistent. Sometimes they write TPH for the word in, and sometimes they write TPH for the prefix in. Indecent, inconsiderate. So you want a separate clean stroke for the prefix in, and a separate clean stroke for the standalone word in. Okay, maybe and maybe, nobody, we did nobody. Oh no, we did anybody. Now there's nobody, okay. And on to, overall. Okay, and somebody, someplace, sometimes, sometime, thereon and upon. Okay. Here is what we talked about earlier today, and now we've got it actually in our handout on page 13. This is a review of words that are misspoken, that are very common. Generally speaking, spell words correctly in your transcript. Spell them correctly in your transcript that are mispronounced, such as axe for ask, Pacific instead of specific. If they say Pacific, you spell it S-P-E-C-I-F-I-C. Both. I saw both of them yesterday. B-O-T-H. Spell it correctly. You know, folks, I like to honor people who might speak in a little different dialect because they are doing what they know. They are doing their environment. If my mom and dad spoke that way and I'm a little tiny kid growing up in that environment, that's how I speak. I'm not lesser, I'm not bad, I'm not stupid, I am simply the same wonderful me, except in that environment. So I never would ever put anybody down if they speak differently. And this is one reason why in English, train the trainer, when they're going for their master's teachers, do you know that they're taught not to correct little children? And as they have the ebonics or other ways of saying things, they are not supposed to be corrected for clean English because it will hurt their self-esteem. Now, I don't quite get it. I guess when you take your SATs and you fail, that's good for self-esteem? I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. But we all love English. We all appreciate quality English. And I don't know about you, it breaks my heart to see the teachers dumbing down teaching English. It's just a losing art. So anyway, okay. Gonna, I'm gonna go. Put going to. Makes you look classy. And how about government? Which is the correct spelling? With the M. Yes. And perseverance or perseverance, which is the correct spelling? Yes? Okay. So use your judgment in inserting incorrect words in a transcript. If they say irregardless, it should be regardless. However, most reporters will put in irregardless. Do you? Do you put in irregardless? That's what we hear. We put it in. So now you're getting mixed messages. You're being told to write correct words, don't write what they say, and you're being told to put in the incorrect word if they say it. So here we are. And that's why I say to you, use your very best judgment. Okay. Always one word, cannot, and somewhat, wherever, worthwhile, somewhere, anywhere, everywhere. And all right is usually two separate words. I've seen it in print and researched it, and oh, here it says all right on the right. All right. Technically, all right is acceptable, A-L-R-I-G-H-T, but it is not used in court reporting. Do we all do two separate words for all right?
Yes.
We were taught that, so I'm just telling you that that is correct for us. However, one word, all right, is technically okay. So there you go. And always two words, a lot, and always two words, in spite. There's one other that I do two words all the time. And the reason is I still don't understand the rule for one word. And since I don't know how to use it as one word, I never have. Can you imagine 40 years of reporting and never using a word in my life in a transcript? A while. I've seen the definitions, I've read it, studied it, and as far as I'm concerned, I do a space while.
Sometimes.
Not me, 100%, but you do it sometimes, you do it the right way.
Yes.
You do it when it is one word.
If you could put for a while, you can do one word.
If you can do for a while, you can do one word.
I mean, it's the opposite. It's two words.
It's opposite, it's two.
Two words.
Finally made a mistake.
Yeah, for a while is two words.
Yeah. All right, so it's two words if you say for a while.
If you can make for, if you can put the word.
So now give it to me as one
So if
word.
it's an adverb, then it's a while.
So give it to me as a sentence.
A while ago, we went to the blah, blah, blah.
A while ago, we went to the store.
So
Well,
that's
I
one
would do
word.
two separate words. Sorry.
No.
I would too. No.
You see what I'm saying? Or a while ago, we went to the store, so that doesn't even make sense.
Okay.
So
you
a
know-
while ago is an adverb.
All right, a while ago is an adverb. Great. You guys are smart. Okay. Questions about anything on page 13? Okay, let's look at page 14, hyphens and quote marks. Okay, here we are. All right, perfect. Hyphens and quote marks. Y'all have a comfortable, easy way to write a hyphen with no spaces? If you don't, you need one. But some people write HF and it's defined, no space, hyphen, no space. Two-tiered cake, money back guarantee, that type of thing. Used when a compound noun starts with a letter, like an A-frame house, a U-turn, a T intersection. Those require hyphens. Okay? Use a hyphen when a compound noun does not contain an actual noun. Like, how many 2x4s did that bedroom need? Or a make-believe, or a hand-me-down, a give and take. That's used as a noun, but there's no noun technically in it. For the prefix co and the following words that start with an O, use a hyphen, co-op. Now, I've seen co-op written C-O-O-P. Looks like coop. But anyway, it just makes it easier to read. See, look, there's a co-worker and co-conspirator. Those are not starting with an O necessarily, and those are easier to read. But I think readability is very important. I'll give you an example. Someone is stopped for driving under the influence, is given FSTs, goes to the police station. The policeman is ready to administer the admonition. You're entitled to an attorney. If you don't want one, one will be provided for you. But the suspect is deaf. They call a sign language interpreter. The sign language interpreter comes in and the police officer reads the rights to the suspect. And the sign language interpreter interprets the rights. At the end, the interpreter says to the policeman, the suspect fell asleep, did not hear all of the rights, or did not see all of the rights. And the policeman says, okay, let's do it again. He's awake now, we'll do it again. Now, the sign language interpreter is going to re-sign the rights. I'm going to put a hyphen in there. I didn't look it up in a book. I didn't make sure that Lillian said it was correct. I'm using my brain. What happens if I do not put a hyphen in re-sign? You've got the word resign. So that's what I mean by readability. Make it nice and easy to read. A little hyphen makes it look so easy to understand what you're writing. And there are other words like that. So I can't stress it enough that we should always use common sense. All right. Use when two nouns identify one person with two functions. A realtor owner, an editor publisher, the actor director.
Realtor should be
It
capitalized.
should, and I just learned that this year, but that's a.
Say that again?
Realtor should be
Realtor,
capitalized.
it's a trademark.
It's a proper name.
Okay, I'm still not hearing what you're saying. I'd like to repeat it.
Realtor is always capitalized.
Okay, realtor is always capitalized. Good, okay. It's a trademark. Great. Thank you. All right. But anyway, that's a good one for the capitalization chapter. Okay, great. Thank you. Use when hyphenating a prefix for a proper name. Pro-Democrat, un-American, mid-June. Yeah, you can always use a hyphen. Sometimes people omit hyphens with prefixes. And the trend is less and less hyphens. However, use your judgment on that. Use when certain vowel combinations are not normal or it's hard to read, like ultra accessible, two A's together, anti-inflammatory, and intra-accounting. And there's my little re-sign. I threw that one in there. Hyphenate the word self when followed by another full word. Self-serving, self-confidence, self-examination. And x-ray, are we all good with how to spell x-ray? Say yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I heard yeses at least. All right. The adjective and verb are written with a small x and hyphenated. The noun, the x-ray, it's a capital X, not hyphenated. So look at the x-ray, capital X. The x-ray film, the adjective, is a small x hyphenated. And the verb would be they x-rayed her elbow. Again, small x hyphen. Okay? And for fractions, used as a direct adjective in front of a modified noun, for example, it required a 3/4 vote. Would we put 3/4? Generally speaking, we write these out. However, you know me, if I feel like doing a 3/4, I'll do it. And people will read it and move on. Okay? But technically, it is spelled out. They need a 2/3 majority. That would be hyphenated. Okay. And when multiple compound adjectives describe the same last element, he suffered first, second, and third degree burns. Perfect example of the hyphen inferring whatever else is coming. In this case, it's degree burns. So the hyphen is the inference. They carry 200, 400, and 600-pound loads, etc. Okay? And used to separate phone numbers and social security numbers, we know that. Exhibits with a subset get a hyphen. 1C, 4G, pass me 3H, etc. Whether it's a number exhibit or a letter exhibit and a sub-exhibit, we always put hyphens. Pass me 3H, L, M, and P. There you see those little hyphens dangling there. All right. Dates set in figures can be written with hyphens or, yes.
On the bottom, if they said $2,300, would you put the dollar sign in front of the 2, 3?
Okay, if they say it was $200, $300, $400, for me personally, since I'm not 100,000% clear, and I don't think that was clear talking, I would write there were TWO, comma, THREE, comma, $400. That's how I would write it. Or FOURHUNDRED When they speak numbers that are sloppy and not easy to understand, I will not interpret. If I can interpret, for example, they spend, about $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, then I would tend to put the dollar symbol, because that's really easy to understand. So that's just what I would do. How about you, folks? Anybody have a different answer? Reggie?
Sound good.
Sound good?
Sound good.
Yeah, I got something right. Woo! Thank you, Reggie. Okay. So let's see now. Those hyphens, yes. And date figures, they can be written with hyphens or slash marks, whichever you prefer. They are both technically correct. I personally find it easier to write hyphens with no spaces, so that's what I would do if it came up. And also check your CAT software. Sometimes you can write numbers and put date, and it'll automatically go back and format it as a date. Okay. Quote marks. I'm going to do quote marks. We've got it all spelled out here for you, but there is something else I'd like to share with you. Can I do that? It's a little bit off topic again. You don't mind if I go off topic? Nope. Okay, good. I'm going to go off topic and share with you something that is a common misstroke. Okay, well, wait, I'm going to start with one question. How many of you write a period, like the end of the sentence, one way? One way only. How many of you write a period one way? Okay. And is that FPLT? Yes?
Unless I misstroke it.
Okay. Yeah. What is FRPLT? FPLTS?
That's period.
FRPBL?
It's a semicolon and a colon.
A semicolon and a colon. And do you ever misstroke those, or do you always get them just exactly right?
I do misstroke them.
You what?
I do misstroke.
Oh, you do misstroke them. So if her FRPLT is really a semicolon and she misstrokes it, she'll have a period and she meant to have a semicolon, right? Something like that. All right. The truth of the matter is, we misstroke FPLT. Chances are it's in your database. 8, 10 different ways. Who knows how many? Has anybody ever had this happen? You're writing a sentence. He came home yesterday meant. Anybody get meant at the end of a sentence? And we know how that happened, don't we? Because we wrote PLT, MT, final MT, meant, suffix. We really wanted to be came home yesterday, period. This is absolutely unacceptable in the world of captioning. Captioning, they do not want MENT at the end of a sentence. So they're going to ask you to change it. You could do MENT or M final MT, or you could change your period. Now there are many captioners who write the period differently. Not all, of course not all, but some. And would you like to know how some captioners write a period? Say yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And by the way, do you write FPLT? Do you write FPLT? Okay, and do you do PP? Okay, so I love having two captioners in the room. We're hearing so many different answers. So one way is PP and the other way is, that is the two letters P, okay? I'm not trying to be naughty. So if you want to leave your suffix M, you can do that. But many captioners, including 50% of who's in our room right now, many captioners write PP for the period. Ergonomically, it is very comfortable. It feels good, it's easy to write. They also write WR for the comma. On the upper bank middle finger, ergonomically great to write. lower bank, middle finger, WR. There's no meaning about the whoop or the ruh. It's just an easy to stroke. And if you do this, and I'd strongly recommend that you give this a serious look, because you misstroke semicolons and colons, and there are other strokes that you can use for semicolons and colons. And if you say goodbye to the FPLT, you don't need to define all of those misstrokes. You have a very clean way to write. And if this is used by captioners and it works well, we all end up loving it. Don't we love it? But you were taught that in the beginning? Oh, you...
I was taught with the FPLT, and then when I went into captioning, I had to change my period.
Okay.
I was having so many issues, and
Right.
it took me a long time to
Oh, yeah.
master it.
So here is the idea. Are you all with me on this? Are there any questions? Okay. There is something else that you can do. I made it up. It's called the Big Ugly. If I were going to make that change, which I already did, I lived through it. I lived through the PP and the FPLT there, and it took me about 2 months to finally get that PP in my head. If you are willing to live through a Big Ugly, it could take you up to maybe a day and a half or 2 days to make the change. You take your FPLT. You do not leave that defined as a period. You take out the definition and you do something like this. Straight bracket, period, in all caps, folks, all caps. IOD is PP in brace. If you define the FPLT as this, you will forget and write this accidentally. Your transcript will show this, hence the name Big Ugly. And if you do that over and over and over again, about the 20th time you're going to start cursing at your screen. And the 30th time you're going to curse at yourself. Why can't I remember? Why can't I remember? And I'm telling you, it could take a day or less. I do a lot of private one-on-one trainings. And I've watched my people, when we're in a one-on-one training, make these changes. And the average is about 1 day to a day and a half. And then it finally gets in your head, the PP. It's just a great way to master a change. And if you're worried about being out in the mean old world and writing this, leave it alone. Don't worry about it at all. Unless you're on an 0 and 9 expedite daily, and they're scrutinizing every single screen, well, I wouldn't use a Big Ugly. But on all our normal writing in court or in depots, don't worry about it. Use a Big Ugly. It's only for a day or a day and a half. And you can learn that PP. Does that make sense? Okay. And the WB. So that's just an idea. Now showing you this, look what you can do. You can make up other strokes. You can create things that when you misstroke something, analyze it, think about it. What could I do to make my life easier? And for you, with your semicolon and your colon, you can do strokes. I'll tell you what we teach in our workshop for other reasons. We teach SK comma, not S comma. How many of you do semicolon S comma? Okay. We don't do that in the workshop because there's an alphabet with commas that we use. And if you're doing S comma with an alphabet, you can't do S, the alphabet. So we do SK comma. It's so easy to add the K to semicolon. So SK comma can be defined as a semicolon. And then colon can be KL comma. Colon and semicolon. Very different from your FPLT. That's close and dangerous. Does that make sense? So invent something brand new if you want. Questions? Comments? Okay, let's continue on. We are doing our hyphens and quote marks. We're at quote marks now. Capitalize the first word inside quotes if it represents a complete sentence. She said, books they bought are fabulous. You referenced what she asked. When can I leave? Okay? Do not capitalize the first word if it does not represent a complete sentence. So folks, you can read this. You can see what our quote marks are referring to. And you can see that I've given you an example of every outline here. For example, number 7, use quotes when it's being defined or referenced. What do you mean when you say compartmentalize? And there's an example of quote marks. So that would be just another guideline or a rule when to use quote marks. And folks, you can read this on your own. I could sit here and read it, but you've got the information. There's nothing different or unusual that I would give you. And on page 16, we talk about single quote marks and apostrophes. I will serve on the board for 3 years, as Alex said. Oh, as Alex said, I will serve for 2 years. Mary said, I will serve on the board for 3 years. As Alex said, I will serve for 2 years. Okay. The story quoted the fire chief saying, this is the worst fire we ever had in this city, and the store owner said, I am so shocked and distraught. Okay? So that's an example of quotes and then a single quote within double quotes. And we know that that would end with a single quote and then double quotes together. Are there any questions about that? No questions about single quote marks. All right. On page 17, we have an apostrophes quiz. There are 5 questions. At your leisure, go through them. And on the far right, you can see that I've included the answers for you. Are there any questions? All right. That brings us to the end of this particular session. So, thank you.
Well, there you go. You're done. How easy was that? I hope you had a great time taking this program. Now you have a few more CEUs to add to your CEU bucket there. Now remember, if you're taking one of our longer courses, please wait until you finish all the seminars before you send us your answers. And please try to, if you're going to put them in an email, copy them in one straight vertical line, separated by the different course titles. And that makes it easy for me to grade, makes it go a lot faster, and I don't make any mistakes. Well, not so much. Okay. And also, you can scan them in order and send them to me as well. Remember, we're always putting new content up here. Every year, we will have at least 4 to 10 more hours worth of CEUs that you can get here from the comfort of your home. So if you know more court reporters that would like to get their credits that way, please let them know about it. And remember, your home for CEUs online, Jeff Justice Seminars, where you can get your CEUs online anytime.